plenty of announcements happen tonight. How are you feeling?
Fantastic. I feel absolutely fantastic. I thought, like I was saying when Hook was up here, that this was probably the most families in pro wrestling I've ever seen on one show. And that was kind of a theme of the show, but in a really cool way. They were different moments, different families from different parts of history, culminating in, I thought, one of the greatest family moments ever in the sport, and it was really beautiful. And it was an arc, you know, from the great interview you did with Bree ahead of the show that we showed today, and to see Bree and Birdie and Buddy all at ringside, getting to see Brian win the championship and have that family moment, and also you know, to see Brian come in here and to have that with Birdie, that is pretty great. So this is one of my favorite weekends ever in the wrestling business, and Will Ospreay, what he did for the company this past week in Cardiff and tonight, and the match Will Ospreay and MJF had was absolutely fantastic. I agree with everything Brian said. Swerve has just been such a great AEW World Champion, and you know, you need a great champion and a great challenger to have a great title match. In this case, it was a great title versus career match with a great champion and a great career. And I thought it was one of our most special main events, and there's a lot of really exciting things happening in AEW. And it's now very fitting to go from a hometown of mine here in London to the place I was born this week, and
a party at your house, yeah?
Yeah, come on. And we'll have everyone over, and we'll have a big party, and it's going to be a great time. And also, we're going to go, like I said, this Wednesday to the arena where I saw my first ever wrestling match, and we'll have some big moments. Brian's going to have some time here to think about his future and what he's going to do next. But it was great to have Brian claim the world championship in the main event and have that moment with his family tonight in Wembley Stadium. And we're all really looking forward to Wednesday Night Dynamite. I think there's so many things happening in AEW that we can all get behind, but really tonight just felt like a real feel-good show in so many ways.
Agreed very much. Guys, any questions for Tony?
Hi Tony, Morgan Richards here from Southern Podcast. As a proud Welshman, two things I wanted to say was I love the fact that Dynamite was in Cardiff for the first time outside of North America. And secondly, I hope Harry Wilson has a great season to follow.
He's off to a good start.
But my question is, as a booker, how do you deal with something when the UK crowd decide that Big Bill is the most favorite wrestler of all time?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it's, you know, very consistent with what we've seen with Big Bill, that Big Bill has all the skills. He's been a champion in AEW, and he's with Chris Jericho as a mentor. He's facing another really popular star in Hook. We saw it, we got great reactions for Hook. What a great moment it was when Hook won and had that celebration with Taz, and how the crowd came up when Taz got involved in the match and left the commentary table tonight. But Big Bill has done a fantastic stuff here in AEW. I think you have to look at what's happening in the learning tree, and I think with Big Bill, he's got all the potential in the world. Chris Jericho is one of the smartest wrestlers of all time. He definitely sees it in Big Bill also, and I think it's something to watch, like where it goes. But I think it does definitely play into what we see on television, that this is a super talented guy that's with a wrestler that, you know, is not necessarily the most popular with the fans, but somebody who's really smart. He recruited Brian Keith and Big Bill for a good reason. So I was excited to see that reaction to Big Bill, because, you know, we really like Big Bill here and somebody we think very highly of. So I thought that was awesome, and definitely something you can lean into. And really, that's what wrestling's about. You know, in football, if you're planning to run the ball and you would call it a run play and the entire defense comes up and stacks up, like that's, you know, a lot of times in football people have another play called in that case and call it audible. And I think a lot of times in wrestling there are times where you see something and you get the opportunity because you see the fans react a certain way. So depends on the situation, but I think it was great to get that reaction. And, you know, the fan reactions in this case, the great thing about pro wrestling is it's not like a defense necessarily. It's like you're all together, the flow of the fans, like we're all, you know, in harmony with each other in a way. Yet wrestling is chaos, and that's the great balance of wrestling. I think it was really cool to see that reaction from the crowd. And what's really interesting in wrestling is when a crowd can show you how they feel and express themselves like that, other crowds will often do similar things. So I wouldn't be surprised if Big Bill gets a lot of great reactions. Thanks for asking. And also, it was great to do the show in Cardiff. I don't know if everyone picked up on the verbal trick I had done all year, but I had said, and I promised, and I told the truth, that the only AEW show all year in England would be All In. And then, of course, we did go to Wales, and so I kept my promise, but I thought it was a great way to have AEW All In be a very special thing, our only show this year in England, but also debut Dynamite and Collision in the UK very successfully and have a great AEW debut in Wales. Thank you for saying that, and come on, fall.
Hi, Tony, Stephanie Chase. Tonight we saw the return of Daniel Garcia during the MJF Osprey match. There's been a lot of talk and speculation about him recently. Reportedly his contract's up in October. Has he re-signed, signed an extension? Is he negotiating? What's going on?
Well, I don't want to necessarily comment on everybody's contract length or status, but Daniel's here and he's a great part of AEW. We've been having great success, and this is a great night to reflect back on what we've been doing here in AEW. And for some reason, we keep going back to this number of like the past 3 years, but at Revolution, we talked about the 3-year run of Sting, and what a special 3-year run it was with Sting in AEW from 2021 Revolution to Revolution 24. Bryan Danielson at All Out 21 he debuted, and we're coming up on 3 years of Bryan Danielson in AEW, and again, a really special moment in that 3 years. Well, it's been, about 3 years with Daniel here, and Daniel Garcia started with us in Daly's Place, and he was kind of on that run of shows right before we went back and started wrestling in front of the crowds again. So he's somebody who's been with us a really long time. He's somebody beloved by the fans and backstage, and we love having Daniel here. So without saying exactly what's going on, it's a good sign that he was here, I think, and really great to have him come and take that next step tonight after what happened with him and MJF and Will Ospreay being involved in the international title. It was a great payoff to a lot of storytelling in the recent weeks on Dynamite, and I think we're on a really great run of Dynamite. People thought this go-home show was probably our best go-home show we've done, one of the best shows, and really it feels like that's been consistent. Coming out of Forbidden Door, I felt like the show we did, Beach Break in Chicago, was one of our best, and it was when Garcia had gotten taken out, right back then, leading into that MJF Will Ospreay 59-minute and 58.5-second international title match, setting up tonight's rematch. But Daniel Garcia has been a big part of AEW for a long time. We love having him here. Thanks for asking.
Over here next one.
LeMaire with Wrestling News Co. We saw Zack Sabre Jr., the G1 Climax winner, come out tonight. We also saw the huge New Japan AEW Forbidden Door will be here in London next year.
Yes.
So how did this all come about, and how are you working with your partners to create, a year from now, incredible potential matches and storylines?
Well, there's a lot of interesting things. We saw, for example, the G1 winner, Zack Sabre Jr., here tonight. He's a great star in the UK. I first met him here in the UK many years ago. He's a top star in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It'd be very interesting to come back here for Forbidden Door 1 year from now, back in London. And we have huge opportunities, of course, after doing 2 years of great all-in shows here at Wembley Stadium in London. We're flipping things around. We've traditionally done Forbidden Door around North America, bringing Forbidden Door to another one of the great pro wrestling cities in the world, which is kind of a great tradition we built now, doing the first 4 Forbidden Doors officially in Chicago, of course, Toronto, New York, and now London. Those are 4 of the real marquee cities in pro wrestling. And I think it's kind of a cool thing we're doing next year, bringing Forbidden Door here in August and then taking All In to Texas in July. I think they'll both be very successful shows. And Mr. Ospreay is also a very intelligent pro wrestler, has a great wrestling mind, and in this case, I think we think alike. It'd make a lot of sense to do more shows here next year. I think we have great fans, and Will made a great point.
Hey Tony, John Mahon from Kerrang Radio, and rock music played a massive part in the show this evening. You had Brian coming out to one of the worst songs of all time, Europe's Final Countdown. Hey, not my words, he found it on the list of the 100 worst rock songs of all time. And Sting coming out to Metallica's Seek and Destroy. How important has not just rock music, but music in general been to creating not just the brand of AEW, but the characters within AEW?
Absolutely. Those are great examples. I think Pixies from Orange Cassidy is a great one. And when Jefferson Starship last year with Jane, and we played them both in Wembley Stadium. A lot of great rock tracks and rock musicians in wrestling and around wrestling. I think it's a big part of it, but there's also other music genres that are a big part of wrestling. Obviously with hip hop, we saw hip hop entrances, in particular Swerve's entrance tonight. I thought they were great and did a great job. But yeah, rock music is a huge part of the pro wrestling business as well, and it's something I really like, and I think we've been able to bring a lot of cool music into the show. Even in addition to some of those licensed songs that have come in more recently over the years, even from the very beginning, I think Darby had a very recognizable song, with Wicca Springs, and then Chris Jericho's Fozzy song has been one of the original AEW themes people still remember, and before he became the Learning Tree. And there's, I think, a lot of great themes and a lot of great songs, but certainly Sting, Metallica, Seek and Destroy, anytime Sting's involved, that's going to be a huge moment. And Final Countdown to me, for a long time, going back to last year, I've known Final Countdown was going to be a huge part of the presentation and what we do, and would make this moment go to another level. So when you can secure the rights to a song, no matter what people think of it, it's whether it's the best song or not, I think it's a great song, and the crowd loves it, and it's become so associated with Brian. So I only have positive things to say about Europe and their great song, Final Countdown. I think they're a great band, and they've been a great part of AEW, and it was one of the most special moments of my life. So I gotta, put over Europe, and they did a great job for us. Thanks.
I have a question. Is there a story with Machine Head?
Yeah.
What's the story with that?
Well, we're going Wednesday to Champaign, Illinois, and I love the song Machine Head. In the first concert I ever went to, it'll be in the building we're in Wednesday. We were there, we did the 10th episode of Dynamite there. So John and Chris Jericho and a lot of the original AEW stars in 2019 were there. It was our very first year, like I said, the 10th ever episode, and I think this will be episode 256, I think. And so to go back, almost 5 years later, it's a big deal. But the first concert I ever went to without my parents was Bush, and they opened with Machine Head.
Was it Veruca Salt opening for them?
It was No Doubt, and it was
No Doubt with that?
Yeah, and it was also, I think it was a big moment in there. I think it was a big period in their lives. Because I think that's when the stuff started going down.
Sorry to deviate there. I just wanted to know also.
I am a huge Bush fan, and 16 Stone, was a great album, and that was the song they opened with the first concert I ever went to. So I thought that is part of the deal. And it was a great song last year, and a lot of times with wrestling shows, they change the marquee theme every year, and I thought it'd be cool. We're going back to Wembley Stadium, and it just feels like all in season when you hear Machine Head. So I just thought it was cool.
Just know that Oasis got back together today, so we should all be grateful for that.
Yeah, that was great. They've been great too. And how about Nigel?
Yeah.
Speaking of moments, that was great.
Tower of London.
Yeah.
All right, who do we got?
Hi, Tony, thank you very much again for Irish Representatives. In July, the state of Ohio announced $1.275 million tax credits to AEW as part of the motion picture tax credit agreements. And much like the Arlington agreement, that residency program that lets the audit events strengthened along those lines to be expected for the Cleveland, Ohio area.
So pardon. What about much like the Arlington? You said what about much like the Arlington residents?
In Texas, is there anything in the pipeline for Cleveland area, Ohio, following the tax credit?
I would love to do more things in Ohio, Renee. You can see, Renee, a lot of great things have come out of Ohio. We would save some travel costs on some of the top people for sure. I think I would like to do more things in Ohio. It's a great wrestling market. We've done some things there over the years. We've had a lot of great TV, a lot of great events, House Rules. It's an incredible wrestling market. Every time we go there, I feel like the fans are fantastic. We did one of our first house shows we ever did was there, and some of our best TV shows are there. And in particular, probably the biggest star in the history of the company, John, is from there, from Ohio. And I think So, you know, there's a lot of positives there. Also, some of the hottest fans in wrestling. When we go to Ohio, we've had so many great shows there over the years around different cities. Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus. Dayton's a great one coming up. That's a great one. And, you know, even when we've gone across the border to Kentucky, across from Cincinnati. But yeah, there's a lot of great markets there. We did Troy, Ohio. That was a good one.
Nothing specific like tax credits.
Is there anything you guys want? Tax credit? Yeah, I mean, that's good. But I think we're, you know, I can't comment on the status of the tax credit. We love doing stuff in Ohio. We do have some shows on the books, obviously, that are known coming up soon in Ohio for you fans. And, you know, we love being there.
We'll do 2 more questions for Tony.
Hi, Tony. Neil Flanagan from Post Wrestling. I wanted to ask you something about the creative process in AEW. And I know that you're not going to pull the curtain back altogether on this, but I'm going to ask anyway. I think one of the common themes of All In 2024 has been, it's been better received, I believe, in the build, the view building, the storytelling, and I wonder, is there any kind of change in your outlook on this? I mean, in your media call on Thursday, you did mention the kind of the input that went into the Women's World title program, for example. And I think throughout the card, it was seen this year, possibly more so than last year. You're the co-owner, you're also the booker. You know, who else is involved in this? Is it RJ? Is it Chris Daniels? Is it Jim Jacobs? You know, can you?
There's like 27 people involved in the process, and it's like a football team. When I go in and I'm in a football meeting where there's like a lot of people contributing ideas, and you have like a dozen coaches on offense and a dozen coaches on defense, and everybody puts something in, and at the end of the day, I have to decide. And I get pitched hundreds and hundreds of ideas a week, and I can do less than half of them. And some of them are great ideas that just don't make sense because you need somebody else that somebody else had a better idea for, or that we were already pretty far down the line with. And it's like a big map, and I get pitched hundreds of things. And then if I have to decide. So, but that's a lot like other sports. You know, this is a sport. And that's something I've been trying to like hammer into the people, is like when people tell me, I've said that a lot this weekend, people tell me they're gonna try to do something, and I say that wouldn't fly, and that doesn't fly because this is a sport. And like if I was at Fulham and the captain of the team told me I'm gonna try to do that for you, like I've never heard that. And this is my 9th season as a sporting director, and not one person has ever told me that. This is my 13th season as a professional sports executive, and in other sports, nobody's ever told me I'm gonna try to do something. Like, fucking do it. And like, that's how it works. And like in other sports and in this sport, like that's the whole point of having a head coach. Like, and there's lots of ideas, and the cool part is we have like I said, there's probably 27, 30 people in any given week that will come in with different ideas, trying to contribute to different parts of the thing. And it's like in football, where you have your quarterback coach, your running back coach, your wide receivers coach, your tight ends coach, your offensive line coach, your assistant offensive line coach, your assistant offensive, different people that are focused in different areas. And so I've got some people that might work with other people more than others. So like, Jen would work with Mercedes, but she might work on promos with other people that she has a good rapport with. I put together, like I said, I'd come up with ideas for I'd come up with ideas for Tony and Mariah, and none of the coaches I had were really good for it because none of them understood what the fuck I was talking about. And everybody was looking at me like, all about even Sunset Boulevard, like, what do you want me to do? So there was only one person in the back that even like knew the references. So like, that's how RJ got involved in the creative process, and he does a good job on things. Jimmy is really good because Jimmy's the only person that goes to every I go to every show. There's nobody else in the company besides Jimmy. Missed maybe like 2 shows in the last year, but like he probably has the best attendance record of certainly anybody in the back office and almost anybody in the entire company. So like just to have a stenographer and like one person that's hearing everything people come in and say. Jimmy will contribute some ideas, but he gets way too much shit online because people think Jimmy's putting this in, that, and that. He's not putting a lot of stuff in. He's really good because he's like the guy that's there every week. He's not biased on anybody's stuff or towards any one person. he has done a lot of stuff with Chris over the years, but it's not like Jimmy is the one saying what we put in with Chris's stuff, because I deal with Chris every week. So then and so it's like a big thing. We have this really, really good group of people, but at the end of the day, it's like a football team. And like and then going into defense, and then it's like you have the other locker room, and you have like it's in one locker room, but it's two halftime. You're in one side or the other side, or in the special team specialist. And there's some people from each group that go over to those meetings too. So it's a lot like a sports team, but yet there's certainly elements of acting and entertainment and show business to it. And that's how, when I get asked, like yesterday in the dressing room at Fulham, when the players ask about the wrestling, and a lot of them were here, and Marco was here, which is really cool. Would have Marco Silva here. He's doing such a great job at Fulham, and I love working with him, and we're in our 4th year working together, and I think he's just so fantastic. And it's so great that he would bring his family to this. And so I really think that what we've got, it's pretty cool. There's a number of other people that do a great job on other things too, like video packages, tying things together, and also a lot of it is the coaches. So you mentioned like Chris Daniels, there's Sanjay Dutt, there's Pat Buck, in addition to the people I already mentioned. Sarah Stock does a great job as a coach, Jerry Lynn, and about 10 others. Also, because what's crazy is there's no off season, so it's 52 weeks a year. So like I said, it's a grind to make all the shows. I take a lot of pride in doing the Cal Ripken, and in doing so, like I said, it's good to have like different people that are specialists, almost like in pro football or college football, where people focus on different things. I think this year it's helped because last year we had literally just launched Collision. I frankly think it's an easier environment backstage at Collision than it was a year ago to do things. I think it's a lot easier flow between the two shows than it was a year ago. I think the locker room is in a much better place than it was a year ago, as evidenced by like when we came up here versus what happened here a year ago. And I think it's a much easier job I have dealing, because I had to deal with the people on Collision last year, and it's a much easier meeting process to put the TV together than it was a year ago at this time too, if that makes sense. Because we were obviously dealing with a lot of things going into Wembley last year, which obviously showed up. And but today was, I thought, the most spectacular day I've ever had. And I was saying to Brian, we don't know what Brian has to say Wednesday, and we don't know what's to come of this, but there's some uncertainty going into Brian's future, to say the least. And you have the AEW World Champion, and somebody I care so much about, and you have two people in Brian and Sting, and I wouldn't have said it, but Brian said it right before he walked out, that I dragged him kicking and screaming to this point, because it was like with Sting. These are the two most unselfish people in the history of the sport. The two most selfless people, and in the same calendar year, to be able to sit here next to Sting retiring as an undefeated world champion after putting in the best 3-year run he could have possibly had to close out his career, and redefining Sting's legacy, somebody I grew up watching since I was a little boy. Before the first time I ever saw a wrestling match in person, I was watching Sting on TV on TBS. And to be able to put Sting on TBS and send him off the right way, and make sure it was done right, and be here and sit with Sting right here in Derby, that was really cool. And then in the same year, to go from doing Greensboro, North Carolina, and having Sting set the gate record with Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat and all the great moments, that was so great to be able to bookend that with Bryan Danielson coming out to the final countdown with his family, with Bree, Birdie, and Buddy, and to have that moment to be able to sit here in the scrum with Brian and Birdie. It's the first time I've ever cried in a wrestling scrum, and first time I think I've cried in wrestling, and to be able to do both these things in the same year. And with Sting, there was the certainty of what was to come. We knew that he went out on top, but it was the end. And with Brian, I've said this a little bit, but to paraphrase Andy Bernard, it's, for some reason, you never know you're in the good old days till they're almost over. And I don't know how much time's left, and I guess we'll find out maybe more on Wednesday from Brian, but it's really special to be able to come here to this place where I've had so many memories. Jaguars have been playing here since 2013, and how far everything's come. The Jaguars, 2013, the team compared to now, it was nothing compared to where we are now. And the Jaguars, things are going so well there. And to see how far the franchise has come, even here in London, our fan base, but really the football, to see how much better the football's gotten in that time. And then Fulham, to see how far we've come as an organization. You know, and I've had so many great moments here, but since those moments, the team has climbed and climbed. To have Marco here tonight, that was special. And like I said, to be able to cap it off, to sit here, you know, between Renee and Brian and Bertie, and to be able to look at that belt, watch Bertie fold the strap out while you guys were talking. I don't know if anybody saw that. Did we see Bertie fold the strap out? That was nice. That was really, really cool. And to watch Dave Meltzer ask Bertie a question, that was a perfect way to cap off this night. I would love to leave on a high note. Does anybody have one more?
What's a nice question?
Maybe have a nice, can promise me a nice one.
Emily's got a nice
Thank you.
question.
Emily May with Wrestling News Co. One of the most emotional moments for the crowd was when Nigel McGuinness came out. It was such a high moment. I saw tears around me, like around the crowd. Everyone was living that moment. And I wanted to hear from you how that happened. When was that decision made? Will he be heading back to commentary, or are we seeing him in the ring more?
He will definitely be on commentary. He's going to continue. Nigel is a fantastic host on Collision, and he was a fantastic host early on tonight on this pay-per-view. He was doing a great job calling the show, and he's been an instrumental part of some of these stories. It was shocking to see his favorite wrestler, Christian Cage, put the spear on him and really steal the moment from him. You know, after all the terrible things he said about Bryan Danielson and all the praise he's lavished on Christian Cage, I couldn't help but think about that. I'm really glad you asked it. You could have asked whatever you wanted. I was just kidding about a nice question. So I was glad. I was lucky to draw. I got a nice one. But if you'd asked me something hard, that would have been okay too. But that is a great question. And so Nigel is one of the best wrestlers ever. I grew up as a huge fan of pro wrestling, and then I went to college, and tape trading started to really slow down, and DVDs started to get bigger. And when I first started to buy wrestling DVDs, he's one of the first wrestlers I was watching along with Brian. And I think the two of them go together very well. I think to this day, it's obviously, it is very evident in Nigel's commentary, the rivalry, what it means, but also I think there's a lot of wrestling fans that those guys, you know, that era represents something really special to a lot of us. And it's funny, I showed this to a few, I have written wrestling shows a long time before I ever actually became a wrestling promoter, just because I love wrestling, and I put shows down on paper, and I was looking back at my email, and in 2008, over 16 years ago, in the summer of 2008, right after I graduated college, I had put a show down, and it was a Wembley show, and it had Bret Hart versus Nigel McGuinness on. And it was like, that was the match I really wanted to see in 2008, 16 years ago. And to think here we are 16 years ago, and you had not only members of the Hart family here tonight, Dynamite Kid wrestling on the show, Dr. Martha Hart here, but also Nigel McGuinness wrestling in Wembley Stadium 16 years later. We really made it a reality, and also for him to be in that group of people. I think it was something he really wanted to do, and if Nigel was going to make a comeback, it had to be something special and meaningful. And what a collection of people in that match. What a collection of talent, so many stories, so many moments. And the Casino Gauntlet match, you know, talking about 2024, it's been really great because I've been able to sit here, like I said, to have some moments with people I really care about, to be able to sit up here with Renee and Brian and Bertie and have that moment we just had. To have this Sting moment, but also something I've really enjoyed in 2024 is inventing the Casino Gauntlet match, which I think is a really cool match. We've only done it in my hometown so far. Eventually we're going to have to run this match in a town I don't live in. But we've done it in Jacksonville, LA, and London, and I think it's just the coolest thing, and the people tonight really delivered, and a match is only as great as the fans and the wrestlers in it. And the fans were amazing tonight, and everyone in that match was amazing, and I thought Nigel McGuinness really took it to another level. So thanks for asking. That meant a lot, and I'm really glad I got to talk about that. I really appreciate all of you being here and covering this show. It was a huge success for us to be able to come back here and have a crowd like that, and another massive gate this is huge, and to be able to come back here again next year for Forbidden Door and then plan for All In, it's a big deal. I know some of you traveled a long way to come here, and I hope all of your outlets got their money's worth for those of you that expensed it. But however you got here and however far you traveled, all of you are the ones that really make this possible, not only as wrestling fans, but also as the wrestling media. You know, I've been saying this, if you've done my media calls and scrums, you've been hearing it for 5 years, but a lot of you have been covering AEW since the very beginning, and we never would have gotten off the ground without you giving us a chance and supporting us. And I really appreciate all of you being here tonight. Thank you for coming to AEW All In, and I hope I see you all again very soon. Thank you.